Hey there, and welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. It is great to have you join us. This podcast series features those who have gained victory over a life encounter. With that life experience, we encourage those who are experiencing something that might seem to be insurmountable. We advance and encourage others by passing forward evaluated life experiences. We have three objectives in this podcast series. We want to encourage those who are engaged in any type of life encounter by offering to walk with you to help you gain victory over anything that might seem impossible. We want to share our experience to help you. Our second objective is to help you develop a confident resolve that there are multiple options to get past any life obstacle. It's a matter of thinking into the situation. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you are facing a dilemma resulting from a previous decision you wish you could reverse, we want to help you think into all of the facts and factors involved in making an informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business manager, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture Company, who is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we welcome back Erin Clements for our fourth episode, where she continues her life testimony about her divorce with her former husband. Today she discusses trust, the lack of it. She made a very poignant statement which many of us know to be true. It takes a long time to develop trust. It can take only a moment to undermine the trust, and it can take nearly a lifetime to reestablish trust should we get into the situation of betraying someone's trust. But Marty, it's a very poignant testimony of trust in working with someone. How do you develop trust? How do you know if you can trust someone? What are some takeaways our listeners can gain from Erin?
Ron, to me, trust is a word that is used for many situations. But in a situation where one spouse broke the commitment of a marriage, the trust is so devastated. For me, it would feel like I am not worthy. I wasn't good enough to keep him from going outside the marriage commitment. So trust in a situation like that can take a long time. We've had friends that have gone outside the marriage. We've been able to talk to them. It takes a while. So I admire the person that can go through it, come on the other side of it, but know it will take some time to trust someone else if you ever do.
The feeling of not good enough can travel both ways, whether it's the man or the woman who breaks the bond of trust. It can happen both ways. We've discussed before, but we cannot overemphasize the importance of values and traits in a person's character. Marty, let's listen and learn together. Erin has a great testimony. Erin, thank you so much for joining us again. For the listener who might be joining us for the first time listening to Erin, this is the fourth episode. I want to encourage you to go back to episode 241. That is the start of our multi-episode podcast to learn about Erin and the life journey she is experiencing, having divorced her husband through sexual immorality. Erin is doing just a great job to recount without focusing on the past, but how do you get over something like this to restart a life? For the listener who is joining us for the first time, Erin, Marty, and I are faith-based. We rely on Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, to bring us through life encounters, life travails. But it's through that, and Erin, our listeners are very interested in learning how you can, through life journey, recover from this, and trust might be an aspect of what you have experienced. And could I ever trust anyone again based on what you and your husband experienced? Erin, thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me again, Marty and Ronnie. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Erin, let's talk about trust. Is trust and mistrust an aspect of your life journey? I know that just conceptually, it takes time to develop trust, and it may take, who knows, 4, 10 times as long to redevelop trust for anyone who has broken the bond, betrayed, or something of that effect. Can you talk to our listeners about trust and what you have or are experiencing?
Yeah, rebuilding trust has been for me, it's a long process. It's hard because I had to ask myself, do I ever think I'm going to be able to trust again? Once I went through this experience, and I'll be honest, initially, I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to trust again. I just don't know what that would even look like to be able to trust somebody again to the level that I had trusted my ex-husband. And so there's this, we had talked earlier too about a shattering. And I really believe that trust is a part of that shattering. It's an illustration that I thought really I related to. Trust is like broken glass, that once it's broken, it's never going to look the same again. And I think that's really true. It isn't going to look the same again as much as we would like it to, or the other person, maybe who broke the trust, would like it to. There's also that saying that we've all probably heard, that trust takes a lifetime to build. Same thing about character, a moment to lose and then forever to repair. It is an ongoing process of repair and restoration. And how long that process takes is how long that process takes. I think it's different for every single person. One of the things that really impacted me, because it's something that I talk with my counselor about and have actually recently, was, when will I be able to trust again? When will I be able to trust another person to, and I'm thinking more of a romantic, like in dating again, all of that type of stuff. When will I be able to trust somebody and let them in and be comfortable doing that? And where I'm at in my journey, she posed this question, and it kind of rocked me, but it was so good. She said, when will you be able to trust yourself again, Erin? When will you be able to trust yourself again? And I thought, oh my gosh, she flipped the switch. She flipped the script on me. And I thought that really hit home with me, because it was me questioning my ability to trust myself in that whole process. And because honestly, I kind of felt like my picker's off, is how I feel. Like, am I going to pick the same kind of person again? Am I going to be able to trust myself to not get in a relationship with someone who has those same, say, characteristics? Will I be able to see the red flags? Well, all those questions just start marinating and kind of going on in my mind. So that's just kind of a little bit about where I am on my journey. But I think trust is a very big, it's a long process, and it takes a lot longer than I think anybody would like it to take to rebuild.
I think that's a very fair assessment, and thank you for expressing yourself. When will you ever trust yourself? And I'm asking that question, did you maybe question your judgment in the context of when will you trust yourself, that I exercised poor judgment in dating or accepting his proposal? And did you go through thoughts similar to that?
I think a little bit, yes. As far as the dating, I think it's more, and we talked about a little bit in the last session, I jumped into things too quickly. We were just kind of, it was that boom, boom, boom. We started dating, and then 4 months later we were engaged. And then less than a year later, or almost a year to the day we started dating, we were married. And so if anything, that's where, yes, trusting my judgment. And should I have taken a little bit more time and just stopped and really just either enjoyed the process maybe a little more, instead of feeling the need to rush into. And so I'll say that with myself now in dating, I'm definitely going to be taking my time. I'm going to be slowing down. I'm going to be assessing it. I'm going to be looking at relationship, both from their perspective and my perspective, differently. That's not bad. That's definitely a lesson that I've learned in the process. So that's kind of where that is right now.
Erin, I'm going to go back to the question that she asked you about is, will you be able to ever trust yourself? Mm-hmm. I wonder if in that question, she's also thinking, and maybe not, all right, you get into a relationship, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and then he goes off somewhere, say just to go get some bread or something like mm-hmm. that. will you be saying, I wonder where he is? You know,
Mhm.
will you be able to get through the thoughts that you have or the trust that you should have without
Mhm.
thinking more into wherever he is or whatever he's doing?
Thanks for saying that, Marty. That's definitely something that I have thought about, because one of the things I hope not to completely, I don't want to bring in my marriage into the next relationship. I want to work through the things that I need to work through from my last marriage, so that I don't bring in those things, so that I can trust that person. But I think that goes to moving a little bit more slowly and really getting to know that person. There are going to be things that are just going to pop up. I just think that things are just going to hit you that you don't expect to hit you. And hopefully through, for myself, having been in counseling, being able to work that through, or even with a couple girlfriends, okay, say, this is what happened. This is where I was at. This is what I'm thinking. Am I seeing this wrong? Do you see me like applying things from my past marriage into this relationship, to sometimes to get someone, what does it say? You can't see the forest through the trees. When you're in the thick of it and you're kind of in it, you can't always see what's kind of from a different perspective. So I think being able to talk with trusted friends, trusted people in my life that I do trust, because I don't want to bring that in to the best of my ability, but hopefully I will have acquired some skills, and I already feel like I am already acquiring skills to where I'll be able to assess that properly and in the right light.
I think that's a very interesting and very important perception, that I don't want to bring that into in the context of I want to learn from, I want to take from the past what is positive. I don't want to relive the past, but I do want to have a very positive identity. Those are some of the things I'm thinking, Erin, and I don't want to put any thoughts in your mind, but I'm just processing some of what you're saying is just that. I do want to learn from, I want to move beyond. I don't want to relive the past, but yet my identity to a degree has been shattered, and I want to be the person God created me to be without having to focus on the past. I'm just thinking, Erin, those are some of the things that you have had to, or possibly are still working through.
Absolutely. And here's the thing too, as I have been working through this and probably understanding that I misplaced my trust in my ex-husband with the trust that I should have placed in God, because that is the bottom line, is who do I trust? I trust God. I trust my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And so in putting everything before him, he's going to guide me in the right direction if I'm listening to him and if I am submitting my life to him, which I am. That's who really, again, that's who I'm looking at is God. And he's the one who's going to be teaching me. He's the one who's going to be walking me through, going to be showing me the lessons and teaching me the lessons that I need to know, so that I hopefully don't relive the past, and so that I can hopefully help others from the things that I've learned, not maybe have to experience those same things, or at least not to the degree that I did. Maybe they're in it, but they have the ability to get out because they aren't married to the person they're dating, or whatever that looks like. Yeah, and I think what's interesting too is that the difficult circumstances, like in my life and in our lives, they reveal who and what we really trust. If that is off at all, that's going to come to light. And that's one of the things that I think came to light, is that I was probably off a bit on where my trust was mistakenly placed, which was in my ex-husband, when it really should have been with God. It's all, again, there are a lot of lessons in life.
I also think trigger points, we know how Satan wants to work.
Absolutely.
And even in a situation like yours, or trauma from a childhood, the trigger points come up, and you have to learn how to say, stop, this is not from God. These thoughts
Mm-hmm.
aren't from God. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So working on all of us, and no matter what.
Agreed with that. And Marty, I think just kind of going back to when you're talking about the trigger points, I think those are the things that you were talking about earlier too, in getting into another relationship or being in a relationship, sometimes even with my kids. We'll be doing something and something will be said or something will be done, and the hair on the back of my neck will stand up, and I'll start to physically experience things because it'll remind me of either a situation or just maybe a phrase, how something was said. They're not there trying to trigger me or trying to do that. But those things definitely, they definitely come in, and it's stopping, like we said, it's stopping it. And I love that you say it allows us to stop and go, okay, this is not from God. This is a reaction, it's a trauma response to what I had experienced. And with, again, I do EMDR with my therapist. I do all those different types of things, has helped tremendously in just not having that same response. But when that first time comes, a lot of times the firsts can be hard, and the firsts can be triggering of any trigger. I'm trying to think of one in particular, but those can be stronger. And then when you really do identify them and go, okay, what does this remind me of? And just reminding myself I'm in a safe place. That's just, again, that's a response. That isn't anything that I have to be concerned about or scared about or worried about. I'm in a good spot. I'm right where God has me. And I can let that go. And I can actually feel that in my body, like decreasing and lessening. And sometimes I've actually had the opportunity to talk with my kids or with other people, just to talk with them, because I've had other friends that I've been with, to explain it. And it's that in itself is healing too. It's not a blaming. I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, hey, remember when you said this? Or I had this really severe, pretty extreme response to what you said. And they might be like, yeah. So I get to explain that, and I get to talk with them about that, because I don't want to take how I was in that one spot and now transfer it to somebody else. If I can explain it, if I can help them, and if they're willing to listen and to work with me, then that in itself is very healing.
That's good.
In our last episode, you talked about character, values. I think agree on the importance of that. But in the context of divided trust, I'm sensing, Erin, as you lived your life, you wanted to put your total trust in God, but yet as you were living with him, I get the sense maybe you were having to divide your loyalties, if I could use that term. He's saying and doing one thing, but your sense is that God and trust, there's something different here. And again, Erin, I don't want to put words that are not there, but I'm just sensing that maybe at a point in your marriage, you felt that you're having to divide your trust, your loyalty between him and God. You wanted to trust your husband, but yet it seems he was going in a different direction. You had mentioned that he was saved, or at least he said he was, but yet you're sensing a dichotomous relationship between what you believe being saved is, the actions that follow, and what he's doing. Am I characterizing anything that you felt?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's one of the things I think that I wrestled with at times was I thought I was doing the right thing. I had this perception in my mind of what a good Christian wife looked like, and how she was supposed to support her husband. And I thought I was doing all those things. And yet a lot of times they weren't measuring up to what I believe his expectations were. And so I struggled with that, not feeling like I was doing good enough, and then wrestling with God, like, how am I doing? I think I'm supposed to be doing what you want me to do and what the church wants me to do. And yet it doesn't seem to be satisfying what he wants. And then I actually was in a position where I was hugely blessed to be a Bible study teacher and leader. And it was, again, it was a call on my life, absolute call on my life, but it was a bone of contention within our marriage. It wasn't And it was hard because I had always supported any kind of thing that he did work wise. And again, I was a stay-at-home mom for 21, 22 years. And I felt like that was my role. I was happy to support my husband with his career, with his work. And then when I got this opportunity to also serve God in this way that I knew he was calling me to serve him, there wasn't that same support. And I couldn't understand why he wouldn't be supportive. It looked, so here's the thing too, it looked on the outside like he was supporting me, but he was absolutely, there were things being said and done that it was not supportive. And from the inside, we kind of talked about that public, private, and secret kind of deal that initially. So I think I wrestled a lot with God on how this was supposed to look, but God was so faithful to see me through all of that and to be able to continue to teach his word. Again, I had no idea what was going on with all this other stuff, this secret life that he was leading. So it's like an onion. There's so many layers to it. Sometimes it's hard to really be able to separate some of those layers, and it does take a long time, but definitely divided is a good word. And it's sad, and it shouldn't be like that, but that is definitely what it looked like for a good portion of the time.
I'm really curious, reflecting back on those times that time when you felt called to lead a Bible study, and you were, I think, hoping he would support that, but he did not. Did you feel you could trust him enough, your relationship enough, that you could have a very collegial, or let's say just a very meaningful conversation? Or did you have the sense that, nope, this is going to end up in an argument, this is not going to go well?
I'd say both. I think that we were definitely able to have those conversations at times, but there was what I would consider like an escalation of animosity towards, maybe not initially, but definitely towards, the more I got involved with teaching, there definitely was more of an animosity. Yeah. That's the best that I can put it right now.
It's interesting you would characterize it that way, that as you were pursuing God, you felt that was your calling. I'm just guessing you felt that if he's saved and he wants to live a life for Christ, the two of you should have had very compatible lives, conversations, but instead it turned into an animous, maybe increasingly animous relationship.
Yeah, that's absolutely how I would say that. I agree. I definitely agree with that.
So I'm guessing, Erin, there were times that you thought you were a stay-at-home mom, but yet you had the hope. We could have just a very harmonious relationship in the house. And when he comes home from wherever he was, we can talk about what the day was like. We can grow together. We can learn from each other and so forth. But I'm guessing, Erin, this animous relationship turned into maybe a thought that, well, what I had hoped to be is not meant to be. Were there some of those thoughts?
Yeah. What's interesting about what you just said is that that's very true. Whenever he would come home, we would talk, but the focus would always be, and literally would most always be, about him and his work. It wasn't, hey, how's everything going with Bible study? What's going on here? What's going there? It was very focused on what's going on with him, his work. And this was true of other areas in life too, because we had been to marriage counseling periodically. And I actually stopped going at one point because it was so focused on, not on us and trying to get us better, but more on himself, his family, his work. And I just thought, I don't know why I'm sitting here because I'm not really getting much out of this. I already know all this stuff. So if you need to go talk about this stuff with them, fine. But there was a lot of self-focus. There was a lot of kind of, being all about him and his family, his family. And I just didn't, at the time, I didn't sense that. And this was a pattern. This was definitely a pattern that kind of was throughout. He loved talking about his work. He loved talking about all of that stuff. But when it came to, again, to my work as, this teacher, Bible study teacher, it wasn't there was not that reciprocation. It was like, well, you just need to do this, this, and this, and kind of be done with it. And I was looking to have the same kind of conversation that we would have about his work, about mine. And, of course, we tried to be on point with the kids, and we seemed to do okay with that for the most part. But again, I would say I was the primary caregiver just because I was home all the time and he did travel quite a bit. So, but yeah, there was definitely that, I would say, more weighted on his end than on mine. But here's the thing. I knew marriage wasn't always 50-50, and I knew that may not look like that, but I was hopeful that maybe he would have more interest in the things I did. And maybe he thought he was from his perspective, but I think even others from the outside could say that it definitely wasn't that. There was resentment over it.
This may be an appropriate time to encourage you to take an introspective look and think about your listening skills. Many times when we have conversations, and it may be even too often, we focus on ourselves, whatever it is we are going through, but many times the person with whom we are interacting to have a very effective, connected communication, that person wants us to listen, not be a problem solver, not try to analyze, but just listen. I do think there's a difference in analyzing versus assessing. As we are able to assess, as we're able to be aware of another person's feelings, that is, we are appropriately compassionate because we know what to listen for, and that person knows we are genuinely interested in them, we can have a very effective dialogue with the person who may be experiencing something in life when they know we are effectively communicating with and we want to accept and connect with that person. Our ability to listen can be the determining factor how effective we can be. Let me encourage you to be a very effective listener. Or the person could be male or female gender, who is absorbed in your story right now, saying something to the effect, I feel as if I'm living what you're describing right now, Erin. And my husband, my wife, does not seem to be all that interested in my feelings, what I'm going through, what I'd like to discuss. I don't feel I have a connected relationship with him or her. Any number of terms may apply. How would you address that person? You're in a journey, and I do believe that, why did I both believe that you're going to have a very viable ministry through this as you make your life experience an opportunity. But for the listener saying, I don't even know how to deal with what I'm going through, can you help that person?
I would say first to just take a deep breath, really just to take just a deep breath. Here's what I do, and I hope this helps, because it's hard when I have such a deep faith and I love God so much, when I know that not everybody has that. But I put it out there to God. I lay it out there. I've just been studying Hezekiah, and I've loved how Hezekiah, prior to when the king of Assyria was invading Judah and invading his land, he put everything at the feet of Jesus. He just laid it out, literally, like, here, God, this is what's going on in my life. This is what I'm not happy with. I don't know what to do, because I think that's where we find ourselves. And I'm sure some of your listeners, we find ourselves in that place where we really don't know what to do. I don't know what the next step is for myself. My first step is going to be prayer, is going to be praying to God, putting it at his feet. Another thing I think it can be really valuable and important is finding a good counselor, is finding someone who will listen objectively, who isn't part of your relationship, and who you will be responsive to listening, to hearing. I've been blessed with some really great counselors who can really point out, like, hey, Erin, that's not okay. What was going on there was not okay. Even though I thought it was okay, they were able to point out that it wasn't. And then they could also say, hey, this is what you were doing. This is what I'm hearing you do. and you need to switch that up. That's probably contributing to this. So being able to hear, but having a really good counselor or coach that can walk with you through this. And you have to ask yourself the question, what is it that you're looking for? Are you looking for restoration? Are you looking to heal? Are you looking to trust? What is it? Has there been a broken trust? Has there been betrayal? Is it just, I'm bored, or we just aren't clicking anymore? That's going to take effort on both people's parts. We've all been there. You've shared that you too have been there. I've been there too. We worked on it. It takes effort on both people's parts. But again, that's probably the place that I would encourage them to start, and to know that that there's hope. There's hope. And my hope comes from God, and knowing that He's there, He's walked, He's gone before me, He is with me, He's been behind, He knows everything that I'm thinking, that I'm going through, and He's going to guide me, and He's going to lead me, whatever that looks like. And right now, what it looks like I have a betrayal trauma, counselor. I've had coaches in the past. I've got some great friends. So I've got right now a good church. Those are some areas that I would just encourage them, but just to take one day at a time too, and not rush too hard into it, to really sit and figure out what it is that's off. And if you can't, again, to talk to some people, I think is really helpful.
In the context of coaching, therapy, counseling, is it fair to say, I'm going to use the term journey, we've all used that. Is it fair to say the journey might mean it could take 6, 12, any number of months to overcome this? In other words, what I'm getting at is it almost once, twice, and everything should take care of itself type thing for counseling, therapy, coaching? Or do you view it as maybe weekly over several months?
Weekly over, I think you're saying a journey, and I would agree with that. It's going to take some people months, and it's going to take other people years. I'm one of those people who have taken years. That doesn't mean I've been in counseling the entire time, because I go in and out of, but I would definitely say yes, to encourage them to don't just go once or twice. Don't just go once or twice. Really, here's what the thing: invest in yourself, invest in that relationship if that's what you are looking to repair or wanting to repair. And an investment takes time. And that can be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. It just depends on what you're working on, what you discover too through that journey of whether it be with a counselor or a coach. And sometimes people actually need more counseling than coaching, or they need coaching instead of counseling. It's just, or you can do both. Both is great too. But it's going to take each person is going to walk their own journey. And I would say, again, just be patient with yourself. This is a place where I've had I expect myself to be farther along the process than I am. And I've just had to sit back and go, what, this is just going to take as long as it's going to take for me. And I'm going to enjoy the process, and I want to learn. I want to learn from it. So yeah, I appreciate that question.
Erin, in spite of your background, the hurts that you have experienced, you have such a great opportunity, and I want to thank you on behalf of the listeners of being so articulate, being willing to be vulnerable, to explain what you have been through, what you are going through. You have mentioned, and I want to talk in the context of future episodes, you have talked about boundaries. I think that's a topic we want to pursue a little bit further. What exactly is that? How do we apply it? You've also mentioned forgiveness, and I'm going to guess forgiveness is a very difficult topic for some people. How can I forgive somebody? Because that just seems like I'm letting him or her off the hook. He or she did me wrong. How can I possibly forgive anybody? But it's a topic, Erin, I'm guessing you have wrestled with, are wrestling, maybe you've overcome, you've reckoned with. Those are topics I think would be good for our listeners to get your perspective, because you've got such a rich life of experience, and albeit it's been a hurtful experience, but We believe that you're making the best opportunity of this, and you're going to reach out and help other people. Would you be willing to discuss further episodes and perhaps talk about boundaries, forgiveness, and how this applies?
I would love to do that.
Well, Erin, you're very articulate. You're very helpful. And I do believe there are a lot of listeners who are experiencing what you are. Helping them through this is going to be a life journey through which a lot of people will benefit. Again, thank you so much for sharing your life experience and what you have learned. I do believe that you've got a great ministry ahead of you. Should God lead you in this direction, if he calls, we know with certainty he will equip.
Thank you, Ron and Marty.
Trust is one of the most essential traits a person has to have a lasting, connected, meaningful relationship with anyone. Whether that relationship is a friend, whether it is dating, whether the relationship is leadership, trust cannot be demanded. Trust, from our perspective, is earned through your consistent behavior of integrity, communication, your compassion, your willingness to reach out to others. There are many attributes of trust that manifest itself in different ways. How long does it take to develop trust? I'm not here to say there is any specific amount of time. It just takes time. It takes diligence to build trust. As Erin said, it takes a long time to build trust. It can be broken in a moment, and redeveloping trust can take much longer than the initial time it took to develop trust. Trust is that ingredient that says, I can discuss with you, I can be very vulnerable with you at least to whatever degree to which I choose. It is a matter of you being able to do what you choose to do without me having to check up on you. Trust includes, but is not limited to, being accountable to each other. That accountability is not in the form of, I have to check in with you. It's a matter of, I want you to know where I am, what I'm doing. In that way, we are supportive of each other. It is an aspect of mutual support in the context of being available, accountable to each other. I want you to know where I am. I want you to know how I am doing, because I know you care. I know you have compassion. I know you want to connect with me, and I know you're after the greater good of my welfare as I am in your greater welfare. Betraying trust is something that can happen almost in a moment. We've got to be very guarded with what we do to maintain trust. To regain trust could take a much longer time than it did to establish the initial trust. We must be guarded in developing and maintaining that trust, to have the open communication, that being guarded in knowing what it is that does betray trust. We want to be very careful not to do that, because again, redeveloping trust to make up lost ground can take much longer than the initial time it did to establish the trust. One of the questions people ask in the context of dating, well, how long does it take? I'm not here to tell you that there is any specific amount of time, but I do believe as you discuss the values that you have between us that are meaningful, the values between various people that are essential to have, the more you feel you can discuss those type topics, the greater the opportunity will be to determine if you can develop the bond of trust. And the bond of trust is one that once we have it, it is sealed, but it can be broken, as we mentioned before. Our hope is that we are able to fully discuss trust. We can develop trust, that safe space, to where we can reliably work with, along beside, walk along with those with whom we have developed trust, knowing each other is working together for our respective greater good. Marty and I are certified life coaches through the John Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. If you are in the process of developing trust, but you're having any challenges with a person to develop that trust, we want to offer ourselves to help you through any challenges you may have. Let's schedule a complimentary 30-minute coaching session to help you determine if we are the right ones to help you develop the greatest potential and live the life that you want. Contact us at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com, and let's schedule time to meet with each other. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating with this podcast series. We hope you will want to share with your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn connections, your Twitter and Instagram communities. The more we share and offer information to each other, the life learning experiences, the greater opportunity we'll have to advance and benefit others. Let's reach out to others. Let's share. Let's work together. We look forward to working with you.